Okay, so what we'll do today, today just will copy the repository. Okay, so I have kept all the codes over here. You can just clone this and try to do practice. So let me just clone this to our server where the Minikube is running. Okay, so what I'll do here, let me just log in. So I'm just going to clone this. Just going to clone this repository here. Let me clone it and git clone. So it is there already. So let me remove the old one. So we have all these details are there. So first, let me show you this deployment definition file Tomcat and then deployment definition file MySQL DB. So let me explain all this. If I open this file, you can see here the API version. You have to write this like this, okay? And for to find it out what is the exact API version for deployment object, you have to follow the documentation page of Kubernetes, okay? So here the API version is apps v1, kind is deployment. Remember, kind is deployment, and the metadata is up to you what you are going to write it here. Name, you can give any name here, namespace, where in which area namespace workspace you are going to run or put the object, okay? And labels, so we are going to give these labels to identify by some different pods or different ways to identify, and we can connect this pod to different other different pods, okay? Labels and connectors, selectors are there, right? And in this specifications you can see here, as we are going to create the pod, in the template sections we are going to give a name to the pod, okay? Template sections we are going to give a name to the pod, and here given a name as Tomcat web pod, and here also we have given the label, same label as the deployment object. So this label, remember guys, this label is for the object deployment, and this label whatever is given in the specifications in the pod, this is the pod label labels, okay? And here under this template we have a sections called specification. So this specification, when we used to create a single pod, I had told you, right? You have to provide the container information because the pod contains the container inside it, okay? One or more containers will be inside. So here we are going to add a container here, and the container name we are going to give as Tomcat web, and the image we are going to use as, see here, Docker for Ranjit and slash login web of 11. And yesterday I showed you, right, where you can find this. If I go to the Docker hub for this login web app, it will be there, hub.docker. So if you search with the repository name, so here is my repository name. And if you have kept this image under your repository, then you have to provide your repository name here. Okay, then let me just go ahead here, put it here, search for this. Okay, directly I found it, Docker for Ranjit login web app. Okay, if I don't give direct this one, what will happen? You'll get a lot more other repository details. So here, if you see here, I have the tags 11. Yesterday I was showing, right? I will have this tag 11. So the latest one I'm just going to So okay, 2 years ago this image was created. I had created 2 years ago this image. I'm going to use this one. Okay, same image. So and I'll show you how this image is created. Okay, I'll show you the Docker file how the image is created, because you have to create your own image as a DevOps engineer, and you're going to be in a dev site to automate the stuffs. After discussing with the development team, the developers, so you have to write all the necessary automation scripts, automation file. Okay, so here let me show you how this login web app is built. Okay, so before that, let me finish all this. So here I am going to use the replicas 2. That means I need two pods, same identical pods will be running. Selected, so I'm going to match label as front end. So this is the matching label. Selecting the the pod is going to match with the deployment, the object. Okay, so now let me show you how this object, sorry, how this images gets created. So you have to write the Docker file. Okay, that's why before moving and jumping to Kubernetes, I completed the Docker part. If you have not finished the Docker, and if you don't know Docker, directly move to Kubernetes to learn, then you will not understand what is container, what is image, how to build your own image, how to switch it around, how to troubleshoot containers. Okay, you will not understand this stuff. Okay, so let me show you here. So this part is for the front end. Okay, Tomcat front end. So I have a Docker file for Tomcat also. I have a Docker file for Tomcat. So I can just open this. See, it's very simple one. I have not made it complicated. So it's very simple one. What is given here? The base image. Okay, from I'm going to use Tomcat 8.5. This is the version. And what I'm going to next, I'm just going to use the copy command to copy the war file, the application. Okay, the binary file to this location. And after that, I'm making this location as working directory. Okay, and then I'm just starting the catalina.sh. Then I'm starting up the Tomcat server or Tomcat container. Okay, this is the very simple Docker file is written. Now, let me explain you the deployment for the MySQLDB. Let me explain you the deployment for MySQLDB. So if you see here, for MySQL, it is little big one. Okay, I'll tell you. Here, API version same, because we are going to use deployment, and the metadata is given is simple name, dev, and labels here I've given. Type is backend. Under specifications, so this is all about this metadata, pod metadata, and all. So all specification, if you see the containers, okay, here I'm going to use again the image which is built. Okay, that is called, this is MySQL colon 11. That is directly I'm going to get it from there. I'll show you, even if you don't have image on your repository, how you will build it. Okay, I'll show you. Now the ports here, I'm going to use, I'm going to use the container port as 3306. So what is this 3306? This is the default port of MySQLDB. Default port of MySQLDB, and it's going to expose this 3306. Now, what is here? Environment from. So I had told you in the config map and the variable, right? And variable classes, config map and secret. So whenever you create, you are going to use the config map or secret, you have to write this environment from. You have to write this environment from. That means we are going to get these variables from the environment config map reference secret reference. Then you have to give the config map name. I had shown you in last class what is the config map name we have given. So let me show you again. If you see here, the config map name is given db-config. So here I have given the name as db-config. Okay, this is the config map we have created, and here the variables in the data section we have created the variables MySQL service host given the MySQL DB service, and DevOps class is the database name, user is Ranjit. As it is, I've given a demo for both config map, the open variables, how you can do, and how secretly you can use your sensitive data. Okay, how you hide your sensitive data, encrypt your sensitive data by using secret. Okay, similarly, we are going to use the secret references here, and the secret reference name is db-secret. So also, I had shown you the persistent volume, right? So here the name of the persistent volume I have given that MySQL persistent storage, and var leave MySQL is the mount path, that this volume mounts will get mounted to the container path. This mount path is nothing but the container path, and the volumes here is MySQL persistent storage, and you can see here we are going to claim the volume whatever is created. So if you see the volume, what is the volume name? MySQL PV, suppose. Okay, MySQL PV. So if you see here, um, the persistent volume. So in this, I have kept both persistent volume as well as persistent volume claim. Okay, so if you see the definition file for deployment definition file here, the volumes, the name of the volumes is MySQL persistent storage is given a name, and the claim name is MySQL PV claim. If you see here, MySQL, what is where it is? Yeah, MySQL PV claim. So we are going to use this MySQL PV claim as to going to claim whatever we have created it here. Okay, same thing we are going to create in the volume sections. So this, remember, this volume mounts is nothing but your mount sections of container. Okay, and this one is the volumes which we had created, and the claim we have made it, the persistent volume. Okay, so if I go here below, this is the volume we have created. Okay, and what is the storage details we have given here? The storage capacity we are given 2 GB, and the host path where you want to store it will be, I've given that this is my local path. Let me edit this again. Okay, last time I had edited locally, so let me edit this again. Vi, what happened? Okay, so so what is that path I had created? Okay, so let me save this first. We had created a volume, right? Docker volume ls to see the what is the volume was created. So I had created a volume, this one I'm not going to use that one, so I'm not going to use this docker volume path and all. So instead what I can do, if I go back there, I had created like k8s and volume, right? One path, this is the local path, and yesterday I had shown you how you can set up the persistent volume in the different providers, cloud providers, right? Different persistence volume. You can the mount path, right? Storage mount. You can use it. So if I go here, let me show you that one. What is that? What was that? Go to the Kubernetes IO. Documentations. Just search for persistent volume. Okay, go there. And this way you have to use the documentations to write it down. So if you go a little below here, a little down, and you'll see, yeah, here it is. So expanding persistent volume claim. Okay, fine. Mm, reclaiming details. Okay, so let's go down a little below. Yeah. So types of persistent volume. Here, the persistent volume types are implemented as plugins. Kubernetes currently supports the following plugins. So these are the plugins, persistent volume plugins. So remember, guys, whenever you go for interviews, when they'll ask you questions, you have to tell any one of these plugins where you are using. It is a real-time questions they may ask you. Okay, if you have a work, they may ask you what is the persistent volume you are using, and how the persistent volume and how the storage you are getting, we're setting it up. You can tell we are using the plugins, AWS Elastic EVS, this plugins, if you remember this, to store the volumes and all. Okay, and if you are using for Azure disk, you can tell Azure disk, Azure file, and all these things you can tell that we are using this one. Okay, but I'm going to show you how locally you can store the data, locally store the pod data or the container data. Okay, so let me just open this one. Here I have this volume path, I think. Yes, nothing is there. So this is the path. I'm going to keep it as a volume, mount volume. Okay, mount path. So and the, so here I'm going to use, this is the path I'm going to use to store the, to create the storage, to create the persistent volume host path. Okay, now, and the same thing I'm going to claim the same storage amount, 2 GB of storage. I'm going to claim it. Okay, now, okay, so now you understood this deployment file. Let me just open it again. And okay, now what happened here? We used the db config map. We used the secret. Now what is we are going to do? The volume mounts, the persistent volume store, and this is the mount path of the container. This is the of the container path. This mount path is the container path, and is getting mounted to the volume. Okay, so here the PV claim, whatever things are going to claim here, you have to provide this one to claim the storage amount. Okay, here persistent volume claim, this options, this sections you have to write, and claim name you have to provide what is the claim name we had created. Okay, so now let me show you other files here. Okay, let me show you the image file for the Docker file for the MySQL. It is again very simple one. Only 2 lines are there. From MySQL, this is the version of MySQL we are using, and copying this dev from. I have a DOM folder, right? In this DOM folder, I have the MySQL DOMs are there. I have I have created a DOM, and if you understand this this line, I'm going to copy the DevOps class.sql to Docker entry point initdb.d. So what is this actually? This is the initialize directory of container. Okay, this is initialization directory of a container. Anything you put into that, when you boot up the container or start a container, one anything available in this thing automatically will get started or automatically get executed. That's why I'm just going to put this SQL DevOps class.sql. Whatever the data or whatever the things are there, it will be executed. So let me show you what is there inside. Okay, if I go here, simple. I have just created a table. The table name is user. Okay, I have just created a table. The table name is user, and simple syntax, MySQL syntax only, Oracle syntax, or SQL syntax only. ID, first name, last name, email, username, password, and registration date. All these details are there. Okay, now that is the only file which this DOM folder is having. Okay, nothing else. Now, okay, guys. I think the rest of the things I had explained. Okay, fine. And one more things I have created. Maybe you can just clone this and find this clearobject.ksh. I have written as after executing these things to clear out the stops. It's very simple things. Whatever I have simple things I just used to clear out this one. Okay, what happens here? Simply get all namespace on all these two. I'll show you all this how to execute this one. Simple kubectl. When we will use the kubectl commands, that time you'll understand what exactly the script is written for, and then you can write your own script also. I have written this script to clear out all the objects, nothing to be running. That's why I've just written because every time to clear manually one by another, it will take lots of time. So better what I have done here, I have done again small automations here to run the script, and it will clear out all objects whatever is run by this project. Okay, and good. So let me just start the project. First, what we have to do, first we have to create a namespace. Okay, first what we have to do, we have to create a namespace. So what is the command to create a namespace? What is the command to check the namespace? kubectl. What is the command to check the namespace, available namespace? Not remember. Okay, so it is kubectl get ns, or you can type namespace. Just wait. Why it is taking some time? Okay, why it is taking time, guys? I just explained all this, but the cluster is not running. Unable to connect the server. Okay, the cluster is not of the Minikube server cluster is not started, right? So let me start it. Minikube start. Okay, so it is started now. So what I'm going to do here now, let me, what is the command? kubectl get ns. Good. So these are the namespaces available. So I have dev namespaces already created. Then we don't have to create it again. Okay. So if you are going to create it, then first you have, if you are going to create it, first you have to execute the namespace definition YAML file. Okay. So you know how to execute this. Okay, let me just open this file. This file only creates simple things: API version, v1 kind, and metadata name of the namespace. Okay, now, and that is how you have to execute, and you know how to create it. It's simple: kubectl create hyphen f and the file name. If you hit enter, it will create. Okay, I already have one namespace. Let me hit enter. So what it says already exists. That's why it is not able to create it again. Namespace dev already exists. That's fine. If you execute it, if the namespace is not there, it will be created. Fine. So the first thing is we have created the namespace. Then let's execute and create some variables. Okay, let's execute the config map. So I'm going to execute this config map Mysql. So you have to write all these things and then I have to execute one after another. kubectl create hyphen f config map Mysql. So you can see here the config map is created. Okay. Now if we see this config map details, what is the command? kubectl get config. This is very simple commands, guys. If you at least practice once or twice, you'll remember all these commands. Okay. So kubectl get config map. What happened? Why it is not displaying the config map? The config map. What is the config map name? What is the config map name? The name was given db-config. I don't see any db-config is there. Why, guys? Can you tell anyone? kubectl get config map. So no config maps available here. db-config. Can you tell here? This is actually maybe one of the interview questions, and they may trickily they can ask you. I created and it says it is created, right? But I couldn't. So it is created db-config, but I don't see it here. Okay, it's because we created this under the dev namespace. So by default, if you don't specify any namespace name here, what will happen? It by default it will get the default namespace. Okay, under default namespace. So this is not available. Now, if I use same command and specify hyphen hyphen namespace equal to dev, see the dv config is available and it has three datas inside it. Three datas inside it. There will be a short form of giving the namespace. I think if I give ns, yeah, it's not giving. If I use hyphen ns, that should be a short form. No. Fine. It's not giving, I think, the short form. Okay, fine. So you have to specify hyphen hyphen namespace equal to dev. Then you can find it out. So let's see what this contains. What is the command to view all the what this config map contains and all? So you have to use kubectl describe. Remember, get to get the details, describe to describe any objects. So as I'm going to describe an object, I have to provide the object name. So the object name is config map. kubectl describe config map and provide the config map name. Okay, again what it says, error from server config map db not found, because I did not specify the namespace. Here you have to specify the namespace. Got it? Every time, because we have put it under the dev namespace, you are going to work. So you have to specify the dev namespace. Now, let me tell more on this namespace. So you can find it out over here, namespace. So Here, what is the namespace? Provides a mechanism to isolating group of resources within a single cluster. Namespace provides a mechanism for isolating group of resources within a single server cluster. Suppose you are working in a team, you'll be working for development, and after that you'll be doing the same things under testing, and the same under the same cluster. Okay, so if you create the things under dev and you don't want to disturb that, you don't. What you have to do? You have to create a another. You have to create another namespace and put that one for the testing. Multiple namespaces you can create for multiple things. Okay, so uh, what it says, this is also very important guide, guys. Namespace based scoping is applicable only for namespace objects, that is deployments, services, etc., and not for cluster wide object, that is storage class, nodes, persistent volume, and all. It is not suitable for, because this persistent volumes, storage class, nodes is cluster wide objects, and these are the namespace objects. Deployment, services, okay, config maps, secrets, all will be under this namespace objects. Okay, so when to use multiple namespaces? Namespaces are intended for use in environment with many users spread across multiple teams or projects. So for clusters with a few of tens of users, you should not need to create or think about namespaces. Okay. So if you have very less resources, only two, for 4 or 5 or 10 users are running, and you don't have to really need to create the namespaces. For clusters with a few to tens of users, you should not need to create or think about the namespaces at all. So start using namespaces when you need to features they provide. When it is necessary and you want to isolate your objects, then you have to go with the namespaces. Okay, namespaces are a way to divide cluster resources between multiple users. Okay, and working with namespaces, keeps it will get namespace, fine. And here the simple ways, get ports under namespaces. This is the way how you have to write the namespaces. Everything is given here. Okay, see all this here. Okay, fine. So you have to follow the documentation. Now, let me show you. So what we created, we have created our config map. Let's create the secrets. Okay, so when I describe this config map, you can see here the MySQL database name, the host, DB host name, and the user is given here. Okay, fine. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go create a secret for that. So use kubectl create kubectl create and use hyphen f, then you have to use secret MySQL. Okay, so secret is created. So to check whether it is created or not, kubectl get secret. You have to specify the namespace equal to dev. Okay, so under dev namespace it is created. You can see here our DB secret is available here. DB secrets are available and it has two datas. Okay, fine. Now what we created, we have created the namespace and see, if you have not objects in your registry or thing, then you have to first create the objects. You have to build the Docker file to create the objects. You know how to build this, right? You have to use Docker build -t and then Docker file name. You have to provide it. Then it will build and create the image. Okay. And if it is not, if you have already created and stored under registry, then it's fine. You can directly create this one and use it. Okay. Now what we did, we created the namespace. We created the config map, we created the secret. So so far, guys, are you able to understand all this? Or if you have any doubt, you can tell me.
A little bit, Ranjit. We have to go through again the video.
Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, you'll not. This is, see, that's why the
Yeah, yeah,
Kubernetes is not so easy. So it's actually
yeah. That
complicated to
we
understand.
have to follow the all the sequence. That one you have to
Exactly,
where
exactly.
you
The
have to
sequences,
follow
and don't worry, everything I have written it in this page itself. If you go to clone this, and if you see the README file, right, I have written the
Mm-hmm.
details. So, what is the required prerequisite, and what are the things how you have to create it. Okay, so first,
Okay.
you see,
Mm-hmm.
I have used to Docker build to build these images. Okay, and
Okay.
build
Uh-huh.
these images, and I have after building these images, I have put these images in the registry, Docker Hub registry, and here the versions was 1.2 and 1.1 while when I created. Based on that versions, you can give it based on your requirement,
Okay.
and based on,
Latest versions.
yeah, latest version you can provide it here. And after that, see, create a namespace. Then I have created the config map, secret, okay, then persistent volume, and also on everything step by step I have written it. Just go through,
Okay.
it will
Mm-hmm.
be so easy to use. Okay, now
Yeah.
let
Once we will be go through the sequence, now then
yeah,
we
yeah,
can come to
exactly,
know where we are stopping. Yeah.
exactly. Okay, fine. So let me fine do so. We finished this config map, and we created the um, secrets also. So let's go ahead and create the volumes. Create the volumes. So what is the command to create this? So if I use this kubectl create happen f, see, it created two objects here. You can see here, one is persistent volume, another one is persistent volume claim, because this file has two objects, two sections of file, like one is for persistent volume and another I had written persistent volume claim. Okay, both are created. Now if I want to see the persistent volume, you can just use kubectl create, sorry, kubectl get pv, persistent volume given. This is a short form of persistent volume, because persistent volume is to write take some time, right? So you can write the short form. Use namespace equal to dev. So this is the persistent volume. We can see here the volume name is MySQL PB volume, capacity 2 gigabyte, access mode read write once, reclaim policy written, status bound, and claim. It is already claimed. Okay, it is already claimed because the same claim everything was written in the claim file. Okay, PVC claim, and storage is manual. Just 45 seconds it was created. Same thing if you want for claim, so you have to use PVC to see what is the claim we have created. See, this is the, let me clear it out. See, the claim name is this one, and the volume, which volume it has claimed, the MySQL PV volume, capacity 2 gigabyte, it has claimed 2 gigabyte, read write 1, storage manual 97 seconds of script. Okay, so now we have created both persistent volume and persistent volume claim. Now let's go ahead and create the deployments. Okay, create the deployments, and we this deployment will create the pods. Okay, so let's go ahead. Kubectl create. So deployment is created, and let's create the deployment for MySQL DB. Kubectl create. Okay, both created now. Now if I do kubectl get deployments, get deployment namespace namespace equal to dev. 1 second. Okay, so it is created. Now you can see here the deployments, MySQL DB deployment and Tomcat web deployment. And you can see here it has replica given two. So two, it is has given replicas only one. So no replicas was given here. So if I see the MySQL definition file for deployment file, just go to this my definition deployment file, and here replicas I have given only one. Replicas I have given only one. That's why only one is there. Now if I see here digital get deployments, so both are ready now. Okay, good. Now let's see what are the objects so far we have created in this Kubernetes, in this project, right? So what you have to do, kubectl get all the objects under this namespace equal to dev. Okay, so here we have how many pods are running. So status you can see running 3 pods, 2 for UI, 2 UIs are running, 1 database pod is running. Now 3 pods are running, and deployments, 2 deployments, one is for MySQL, and similarly replica sets also 2 replica sets. So these are the details it is giving us because okay, but where it is not displaying um, the other details. Okay, namespace step. Let's see. Keep secure. Get config map. It is there, but it is not displaying on this command. Okay, fine. It is not displaying all this config map and objects on secrets under get all this one. Fine. Now what I'm going to do it here. So config map and all created. Let me show you. So our deployment and our pods are running. Now our point is how we'll connect to our UI, the pod. Whatever the pod is running, how we'll connect to this pod. Okay, let's do that. First, let's describe this pod, what this pod contains. Okay, let's describe this pod first. Now, if I do go here, use kubectl describe pod, give the pod name under namespace dev. Good. So if you see describe here, you can give which node it is running, all the details, labels. Okay, Tomcat web app, type front-end, all these things you can find, and status, IP address. This is the cluster, this is node IP, okay, controlled by this, and image. What is the image it is being used? You can see the image is used this one, okay, and what is the container? This is the container ID. This is the container ID, okay, and here this is how you have to troubleshoot, guys. Now I'm showing you the troubleshoot part, how you troubleshoot. Okay, you have to use. Okay, so if you see it here, it has the container ID and the image is used, and from where the image was pulled, Docker pullable image. This was pulled from the registry. Okay, under all details you can find it over here, and the config map details also available here, and here the events, here the events. So what happened here, if you see, scheduled and default scheduler, the default scheduler actually scheduled is successfully assigned this to mini queue, the cluster. Okay, first what happened, then it pulled the image from the Docker registry, right? Docker Hub registry. Then after successfully pulled, it created the container and then it started the container. So you can find all the logs over here. Okay, this is how you have to troubleshoot the pods in case anything happen. So now, if you want to see the containers, so if I do Docker, okay, what is the command to view the containers in Docker? How I can, what is the command to know how many containers are running? Docker container, if you remember, guys.
Doc, Docker in Docker find container, something like
Oh,
that.
no, 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 no.
Image.
Docker container ls, simple thing. Okay, Docker container
Uh-huh.
ls. So it will give you the list of containers are running. Okay, now you can see here we have only one container with this id is running, and this is the mini queue cluster one. Okay, which one is running now. Now if I use container ls hyphen a, let's see if anything available. No, nothing is there. Okay, now if I see here, we can find it out, docker container id, it will be not there. Okay, it will be not there. Let me show you. So let's inspect this container id, docker container inspect. Okay, this is the host ip and all. Okay, there are a lot more details are there. Okay, no need to find it out, all you'll get them out. Okay, fine. So leave it out, and this is how you have to find it out, the details. Okay, now what we have to do, first thing is how we'll connect to that. And one more thing, you can use the kubectl other commands also. I'll say you kubectl, let's see, hyphen hyphen help. You can use kubectl exec to go inside the pod, like docker exec, we docker container exec, like we used to use docker exec to go inside a container. Similarly, you can use kubectl exec also. Okay, so you can use the commands here. See, exec, execute a command in a container, you can use this one. And all these commands, create, expose, run, set, okay, take a replication controller, fine, roll out, roll back, specs. Okay, now labels, fine. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go inside the container. So what is the option you have to use? You have to use exec. Okay. And if you want to see describe, I showed you, you can use docker, sorry, kubectl logs to find it out. What is the logs? Okay. Same thing, you can, instead of suppose this command, not this command, kubectl describe. Suppose I want to see the logs of this pod, you can use kubectl logs. Okay, so you have to use kubectl logs, and you don't have to give pod here, log and the pod name. Okay, so you can see the complete details, what has happened inside the container, how the container started, apache server, apache container, right? So you can see here, The architecture Java home, it is set up the Catalina base, Catalina home. All this has been set up and started. Fine. So this is how, and the HTTP this protocol being used at 8080, and everything has been started now. Now, what we are going to do, let's see, because it was exposed the port number 30,008, right? 30,008. If I go here, if I find this definition file, the UI definition file, just go here and you can see I had exposed. Port number is not here. The port number is not yet exposed. So how we'll connect to the pod? That's the most important thing. And I'm just asking you a question. If you still understand the concept and remember the objects, can you tell me how we'll expose the traffic to the internet? What we have to use here? How the pod, how the no, services will be exposed to outside, and we can no, connect to the application running in the pod. Hmm? Okay, I think you forgot it. So you have to use the services, right? You have to use the services. Now, if you see here, API version v1 kind service, I'm going to use the notepad. How many services are there in the service, in the Kubernetes service? What are the service objects are there? What are the what type of services are there in Kubernetes? Guys, you have to little study. Actually, you have to little at least have a look what are the things are there. Okay, once or twice. See, there are three types of services. Okay, cluster IP, node IP, I'm sorry, cluster IP, node port,
This
and load balancer. Okay, ingress is not a service. I had told you ingress is not a service. It's actually act as a smart router. It will route the services request from all the ports and read out traffic to send to the traffic. Okay. So here I'm going to use the node port service. So in the node port service, what here in the port section, in the specifications type, I'm using node port. In the ports section, the target port is 8080 and the port is 8080. So the target port is where you are going to target it, like the container. And by default, the Tomcat port is 8080. Okay. And the port I'm going to expose to 8080. After that, I'm going to use a service having port number 30,008. This is the node port. And then it will be used, right? So let's go ahead and create it. kubectl create F and the service. Service is created. Now let's create another service for MySQL. If I see here, what is this service contains? Same thing, 3306, because the default port of the MySQL container is 3306. I'm given a name to the service and under dev namespace and selected. And if you remember these selectors, and I've given, if you can see here, okay, let me show you the definition file, deployment definition file. of this MySQL. See, here the level of the deployment is backend, or the level of the pod is backend. Okay, so same thing I have used in the service selector type backend. So whatever the label is created here, we have given a label to this object deployment, and same thing I'm going to use in the services, because I'm going to attach this service to this deployment on this pod. Okay, that's why I've used the selector section in the services, because otherwise it will not connect to each other, right? I'm just selecting this backend, whatever is given. Similarly, if you go and check this service UI, it will have the front end, and the front end, the selector will have the front end actually. See, selected is front end, and this front end given as a label in the deployment front end. Okay, in the deployment tomcat we have given the labels as front end, so that's why I have given front end here. Okay, fine. Now let's create. So we created both the services, right? Or only one service is created? Okay, one service is created. Now let me create another service, that is kubectl create f service name. Okay, so quickly see what are the objects now created. Kubectl get all namespace equal to dev. Good. Now it is added, two services are there. Two services are there. So one service is cluster IP. One service is the cluster IP service, and other one is the node port. So because the cluster IP, we don't need to connect from the internet. The database is not required to be connected from the internet. That's why we have not specified, and we have not routed to the node port or to the external traffic, right? By using this node port, we have targeted this port 8080 to 30,008. Okay, now, what we'll do, how we connect this one. Okay, now let's do a check of this node of this service. Okay, you have to do kubectl describe service with the service name namespace for to sorry, typo, namespace. Okay, so here you can see the details of the service, tomcat service. Okay, and this is the node port targeted 30,008. Okay, now how we'll connect the server. Okay, the how we'll connect to the pod. If you see here, the services, the selector has given app is Tomcat web app type front end. Okay, so now let's connect to the server. If I go here, you can find how you will get to know all this command. So if you do this service, right, you'll go to find, you'll find it out what is this, what how you will find all the details available here. The main thing is here, if you see, there will be one load balancer ingress. It should have one load balancer ingress. It's not given here. If you see here the diagram, whatever is I had given here, it has a load balancer ingress. Okay, instead of that, it has given IPS. Load balancer ingress is not there. Fine. Let's see whether it is something like we have to add together to create the ingress or not. First, let me show you whether we can able to connect to the pod or not. Okay. So what I'll do here, go and get the public IP of the server. That is the server of the UI, and the port was given as 30,008, right? 30,008. And what is that? Login. login web app. Now it is not connecting. There could be many reasons, right? That will be one reason whether this load balancer index was not showing here. Either that could be the reason, or another reason is, what is the reason? So we might have not given access to this port, right? It would not have the whitelisted. This 30,008 port would not have whitelisted. So let me go ahead and check our security group. Let's go ahead. So, okay, inbound rule, we don't have 30,008. So what I'll do, let me just go to this security group and add inbound rule and give firewall access to the 30,008 port. Okay, let me go edit inbound rule. So just give us TCP, custom TCP, that's fine. And keep the port number 30,008. Okay, so make it as public. Fine. Anyway, so 30,008 is there. Good. Now save the rules. So we have now 30,008 is available. Now let's go ahead and refresh this one. What is the IP? Is this correct one? 230 153.230. Fine. 30,008 login web app. Okay. Now let's troubleshoot this. Why it is not working? Okay. Because I could see here the load balancer ingress is not displaying here. It could be that reason. Okay. Now it's time to clear out everything and recreate it. Okay. Now if I use this, now let's see how this script will work. Now if I do kubectl get all under namespaces, I have to use multiple delete commands to delete all the clear out all the objects. Instead of that, I have written a small script which will clear out all these things. Okay, which will clear out all these things. Now let me chmod 0 clear object. Okay, what happened? Bad interpreter. Okay, so it does not have cases, then I can use instead of I can use sh. Good. Now, okay. So what happened here? It deleted the deployment. The server does not resource of. Okay, fine. So my claim and all these things not deleted. Pod deleted and service also deleted. But this could not find this pod. Anyway, this pods would have been deleted as part of the deployment. Okay. Now, if I do get all, see, nothing is there, everything is cleared. What are things are running, right? This everything are clear now. So you can get this script from the github page. Okay, you can clone it and get it. So all the objects are cleared. However, it did not clear out these two objects, mysql pv and mysql pv volume. Why? Because these are not under the same namespace. These are the cluster label, right? These are created cluster label. If I go here and we had a namespace, sorry, persistent volume, right? If we go and check the persistent volume, no. Here it was given, right? Under namespace. Okay. So what was given here? See, um, namespace based scoping is applicable only for deployments, services, and variables like ConfigMap and secrets, all these objects, but not for cluster wide objects, persistent volumes and persistent volume claims, storage classes. So it will be, you cannot put it into the namespace. That's why when we give get all namespaces, it is not displaying all, because these are not under the any namespace. These are not under any namespace. Okay, so what we can do instead, you can just use get all. Even you use get all also, it is not displaying, because even it is not under default namespace. Also it is not under default, it will be under clustered label. So how you'll find it out? Only way is to use kubectl get. You have to specify the object. Okay, pv. Fine. So if I do get PV, you will find it out here. So that means I have to modify the script to clear out the volumes. Okay. Now let me clear out these volumes. Okay. Now let the volumes be there. I don't want to clear out this volume. Let the volumes be there. Let the claim be there, and let the everything be there. Only so what we cleared out? We cleared out the services. We cleared out the deployments. Okay. Now I'm going to do. I'm going to fix this issue. I found it. What could be the issue actually? Because I segregated services out of from the deployment file, which could not create that one. Okay, let me put back everything in one file and run it. Let's see what is happening. And use bi deployment content server. I just put it here. Okay, save it. Now use the MySQL service. bi. Copy this one. Okay. Now, what we had created, let's go ahead and create the deployment again. Okay. So we had cleared out, okay, we have our namespace, we have our config map is there, our secrets are there, right? kubectl get config map namespace equal to dev. Okay, dbconfig is there. Okay, dbconfig is there. So now what I'm going to do it here, let's go ahead and create the deployment again. kubectl create -f. So if I executed this, it created both services as well as the deployment, two objects created. Similarly, if I execute this, it will also create two objects. Create -f. So it also created two objects. Okay. Now, if I do kubectl get all -namespace equal to dev. So see, it recreated everything. Okay, so it created everything. Now let's see the service whether it has now the load balancer in place or not, or we are able to connect or not. Okay, so now kubectl describe service, the service name, namespace equal to dev. But again, it did not display anything, but still, let me refresh this page and whether it is not opening. And okay, maybe okay. So what happened? No, this IP address, the cluster, whatever is created, the EC2 instances, right? I've used that AWS EC2 instances. Okay, so it is not supporting actually. It is not supporting to connect to the cluster IP and to cluster and get the details. Okay, so for that we have to you have to use Elastic IP, the static IP, and then get it done, and you have to set up the networks for that to find it out and to work. Okay, however, if I execute the same things in my local laptop locally, what will happen? It will it will create everything. It will create everything. Okay, if I execute this in my local laptop, it will create everything. Okay, guys, what we'll do, maybe this everything has done now. So Kubernetes part is totally over. Only thing is to get to run this application to see how this application is running. Maybe what I'll do, as this EC2 instances is not supporting and there might be required more firewall access to connect cluster label, which I have not set it off, and it is required some networking concept to do the setups. What I'm going to do here on the next class, will create it locally in my local laptop, and then I'll show you how we can connect to the server. Okay, so okay, Kubernetes local also not running. Fine. Maybe next class we'll try to fix this off. Okay, so we can see you on next